The Case-Shiller Nationwide Home Price Index just came out, and the gains continue to be huge. Now, was it a slight decline from previous month? Sure. But nationwide, home prices are up 7.2% year over year, which is a slight decline from the previous month of 7.5% year over year. Now, the big driver of all this is inventory, because as you all know, we went from 2.75 or 3% interest rates up to over 7% in a very short period of time. But remember, it's not just about demand or supply. It's about how those things work together. And lately, what we've had is everybody who has a 3% mortgage is going to sit on their house. Understandably. Why? Why get rid of a low interest rate cost? So inventory was down, which means supply is down, which drives up pricing when demand, even if demand decreases, if it doesn't decrease as much as supply, you see an increase in prices. Now, this is the Case-Shiller Index going back to 1987 when it stood at 63, and it's currently at 320. That is a little bit over 5 times growth nationwide. Now, guys, I want to show everybody something, though. Look at this. From 1990, when there was a recession, until 1995, basically, nationwide prices were flat. Isn't that interesting? And in fact, a lot of people live in LA don't realize that this time in LA was the same thing, basically flat. Now, what does that mean? Nothing except to show you guys that when you're buying a home, you're buying a place for you to live. You're buying a place for you to raise a family, to spend a lot of your time. Is it an investment? Sure, of course it's an investment. But it's also a place you're going to spend a lot of time in. So I always tell people, if you're looking for a home that you plan on staying in for a long time and you absolutely love it and you might have to pay a little bit more to get it, I sit there and say, you got to do that. If you love the house, stick with it. That's the key to owning a home. It's your home. It's not just a house. It is your home. Now, if you're speculating and buying, hoping that it'll go up in value very quickly, and you can pump the brakes there. I sit there and say, just wait. If you're not going to live there very long, if you think you might move in a year or two, maybe you shouldn't own. We always thought that buying a home was the American dream, and it can be for a lot of people, but I think it's become a far more speculative play than previously. Now, we talk about supply. This is supply of homes going back to before 2000. And look at this. Obviously, this is the real estate bubble, and this is lately. Look at the supply of homes. We're currently at 1.28 million, which is higher than we have been since 2022, but it's still very low compared back to even the late 90s and early 2000s before the bubble started to really pop right here. So up until 2005, right here, look at this mass. I mean, we're still at half those levels. That's pretty low inventory. And the other thing is, we are seeing population growth decline. What that means is the rate of population growth is declining. It's still growing, but it's declining. And people are having less kids as of right now. So at some point in the future, you're going to have some sort of, do we need as much units, as many units, et cetera. But look at Canada, for example. Canada has a major inventory problem. Why? Because they are letting a lot of people in the country, which is awesome, but they need more inventory for that. You got to wonder the same thing. What are the new builds going like here in the States? I mean, I live in Northeast Ohio. I'm floored by how many new builds I see, because we have a population that's staying the same or slightly increasing, very slightly. Now, do I think that as people have less and less kids, Ohio will do better? Yes, because it tends to be in the bigger metropolitan areas, LA, Miami, New York, Chicago, where people are having less kids. But I still look at this saying, these inventory levels are very low. And I look at home builders and I still see all the things popping up in my area. I'm like, wow, new builds. And I see the prices and I'm going, are you kidding me? I just went and looked at a house recently just on the street from my neighborhood for hopefully, one of our stepkids to be able to buy. And I was floored at the price. I thought it was a little bit better than my wife's previous home, which is worth about $450, and the ask price was $1.1 million. And I was just like, what happened to prices lately? Now, guys, here are the levels for the 20-city composite. Cleveland coming in hot at 8.5%, 9.4 in New York, 8.6 in LA. Way to go, LA. But look at this. Surprising ones you wouldn't have thought to see. 2% in Denver. Now, you guys, if you watched our videos before, and remember, this channel is dedicated to making announcements 4 or 5 days a week, reacting to news, reacting to things like this, earnings, etc. So if you like that sort of thing, do me a quick favor, subscribe to the channel. It's a great channel for us to release news and exciting things that are happening, and it's growing very fast. So I appreciate the support. But I'm buying a lake home right now outside of Dallas, and the number of homes, so I'm on Zillow, and I add a home to my saved list, and I have a lot of homes on the save list. And the number of emails I get saying price drop, price drop, price drop, absolutely is flooring me. Because we always thought to ourselves, oh, people aren't dropping prices. It's a buyer's market. It's a seller's market, I mean. And I'm like, wow. So maybe this makes sense as to why home prices in Dallas only up 3.4. Now, you might be wondering, why is Dallas a absolutely booming city? 500 people a day are moving to Dallas. Cleveland is basically flat. What's the reason? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Supply. First off, Cleveland has limited land. Cleveland is on the water. So half of Cleveland that normally would be in water. So you can't really have that. And then people are only going to go out so far. So remember, it's not just about demand. Yes, a lot of people are moving to Dallas. But if 1 million people move to Dallas tomorrow and they build 1.5 million units, guess what you're going to have happen to home prices? They're going to decrease. Or they're not going to grow as fast. I just want to reiterate that over and over again. I sat in a panel years ago with a bunch of brilliant people, lawyers, developers, and they all said the same thing. If I were you, I'd buy. They all said to the crowd, go look at growing markets. And I literally sat there and said, anybody who thinks it's just about growth has a complete lack of understanding of how investments work, because it's all about income growth. That's what drives real estate values. Think about that. I look at per capita income growth in this country, because if all of a sudden everybody's income doubled, what's probably going to happen to home prices? Well, the labor is going to double. All these things are going to go up, and you're going to have double the income. You'll probably pay double the price for homes. That's just the way it's probably going to work out. If incomes fell in half, what's going to happen to home prices? In all likelihood, there's going to be a decline in home prices, and all things being equal, probably going to fall in half. And inflation's a friend of real estate, because as incomes go up, people can afford more, they buy more. If you sit there and say your house is $300,000, the neighbor just built the exact same unit for $450,000, is your house really $300,000? Of course not. So these things all work together. You see a city like Youngstown, Ohio, where our CEO Tim is from. They've lost half their population since 1980, and they've still seen real estate growth increases. Think about that. How can that be if it's all dependent on population? Because it depends on income, and incomes in Youngstown, Ohio have still gone up. So people can pay. Now, has it gone up as much as other cities? Of course not. It has not. But I bet you that has a lot to do with the fact they should probably be demolishing a lot of homes in that city. And that's the thing for a lot of populations that have declining populations or stagnant. You need to be demolishing homes. Get rid of inventory here. But you look at this list, and it's pretty impressive. Portland, Oregon, only 1.7% increase. That's a shocker. Portland's like Mr. Hipster Central over there. Atlanta, 5.9. The biggest number I see here, San Diego, the perfect temperature in this world. Oh, Seattle, another one, 4.7. Surprised by that. You know, I had a friend of mine who was hiring somebody from Atlanta to move to Cleveland. They were excited to move to Cleveland until they said, I looked at home prices and it's actually worse than Atlanta, they thought. Now, I don't know if that's really true or not, because that person had bought their home years ago in Atlanta, and I think they were trying to compare what they paid $400 for before to what you can get for $400 now. Not comparing the fact that their house is probably worth $650 or $700 now. But they were like, this is a lot more shocking than I expected. And trust me when I say this, I don't like hearing that. I don't want to hear that home prices are up a ton in this area. I love the fact that we could sit there and say to people, come over here, you can buy a great house for very cheap. It is becoming more expensive in this area. Now, guys, another interesting stat. Median home price of a resale was $407,600, and a newly built was $433,500. And that makes sense. You should pay more for a new build. Why? You're getting what you want. It's new, etc. It's a cost, blah, 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 blah. So I like this comparison chart between new home builds and median price, but they're still going to go up together. There's not going to be some major divergence, is my guess, over long periods of time. They're still going to go up in tandem, but there will be a premium to the new house builds. So guys, that's the recap for real estate and the Case-Shiller Index. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your time.